Hey, Richard Nelson here with the Commonwealth Policy Center. Thank you for joining us for this special interview for the state Supreme Court race. We have with us Judge Bob Conley. We're going to allow viewers a few seconds to join us, so stand by for a few seconds and we will resume in a moment.
Tell I've been out in the sun.
Welcome to the Commonwealth Policy Center special interview of the 7th Circuit or 7th Supreme Court District race. We have with us Judge Bob Conley from over in far eastern Kentucky. Also in this race is incumbent Sam Wright, the current sitting justice for the 7th District, and Chris Harris. Both of those individuals have been invited. We have yet to hear from them. They will have an equal opportunity should they choose to pursue this. Judge Conley, welcome to this special presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, this is an opportunity for you to talk to the voters, particularly in the 7th District, let them know a little bit about you, your background, why you're running for office, and why the voters should vote for you. Just a real quick background on you. You have served since 2007 as a circuit court judge for the 20th Judicial Circuit, which covers Greenup and Lewis counties. That's the far northeast part of Kentucky. Prior to that, you served as a district court judge, so you do have experience on the bench. Tell us a little bit more about your background, your family, work history, and maybe some of your interests as well.
Okay. Well, I have lived in Russell, Kentucky, my entire life. My parents are from Eastern Kentucky. My mom was from Floyd County, and my dad was from Johnson County. No, the other way around. Mom's from Johnson County, dad's from Floyd County. They were married. Then World War II came, and my dad served in Europe. And when he came back from the war, they were hiring at the railroad there in Russell. And so they came back to Greenup County, and that's how come I ended up in Greenup County. I graduated from Russell High School, worked my way through UK by working at Armco Steel. That was back in the good old days when we had, a lot of good industry up and around Ashland. So I worked as just a general labor in the summers, and saved my money and paid my way through UK. After I graduated from UK, I went to Chase Law School, graduated from Chase. And by the time I graduated from Chase, my parents were, getting up there in age. So I came back home so I could be close to them. And so I went to practice, just a general practice firm in Ashland. Was there for maybe 4 or 5 years. And then I went to work for Addington Mining, Addington Resources, and spent about 4 years there. Our circuit judge, Judge Lyon, retired, and our then district judge went to be the circuit judge, so it left a vacancy in the district court, and I was appointed by the governor to fill that seat until the next election. And the next election I won and was there for 12 years. And then, of course, when the circuit judge retired, I moved up to the circuit. Just like playing musical chairs, you just kind of go up the ladder there. So I've been a circuit judge now for over 13 years.
Okay. So Judge Conley, I'm hearing then that's 25 years of experience on the bench. Now you're looking to run for the state Supreme Court. Why are you running for this seat? You mentioned musical chairs. I mean, is this the logical progression? District, circuit, and the Supreme Court?
Well, the logical would be for me to go to Court of Appeals, but since there's no vacancy or anything there, I was asked by people to run, and so for the Supreme Court, and
So what are they asking? If I could interject, why are they asking you to run? What is it they see in you that would make you the better justice on the state Supreme Court? What are they telling you? What are they looking for in a judge? Maybe that's the way to ask that.
They're looking for someone that whose life is guided by Christian values with conservative view on things. I think that's basically.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Now, as a judicial candidate, you are not allowed to speak on specific issues or specific policy questions. And that's because if a case related to something you spoke about on the campaign trail were to come before the court, you might have to recuse yourself.
Right.
So I know judicial candidates are very careful and very cautious talking about various things. But what can you say? You just mentioned your Christian values. You mentioned the word conservative. What other descriptors would you have of yourselves to help voters know a little bit more about you and where you stand?
Well, one of the things that I've done since I've been a circuit judge is I've run a drug court. And in fact, I just got off a 2-hour Zoom meeting with all my drug court participants in both counties. And, drug court initially had a kind of a bad connotation because it was, oh, we're going to let drug people out on the streets instead of in jail where they should be. And I've learned since I've been a circuit judge that you just can't put people in jail all the time. You got to give them a chance to change their lives. And I think that I've done that well through my drug court. And through that, I've developed a sense that every person matters. There aren't any throwaway people, right? You don't have throwaway people. You got to invest in them, and hopefully they will change. And that's what I've tried to do as a circuit judge. And that's what I want to do as a Supreme Court justice. I want to make every life count. Every person matters. So that's what I would like to try to achieve.
So let's talk about the drug court and some of the concerns that people have had regarding it. There's a perception that you'd mentioned that people might think you're too lenient, and particularly these are drug dealers, I would imagine, that are before the drug court.
No, not really. We're more drug users than drug dealers. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that just putting them in jail is not the answer. What are some alternative sentencing stipulations or methods that you've used? What's maybe a better path to addressing drug use, whether it's the user or the dealer? Particularly, let's just talk about the user. That's two different categories.
Yeah.
What have you prescribed as far as punishment besides jail?
Well, usually they get a sentence that hangs over their head. So there's, a hammer that I can use, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, I can lower the hammer on them and then eventually send them to jail if they're not going to try to change their lives. But usually, a lot of the drug users seem to be uneducated. They don't even have a high school diploma. So part of their stipulation to keep out of jail would be to get their GED, go through rehab, attend rehab meetings, group meetings, to talk with other people in similar situations to try to strengthen them and their resolve to make a change. And it's all about changing, right? You got to change. You can't hang around the same people you hung around, because those are the people that got you in trouble in the first place. So making life changes. usually they end up attending church, and get help through churches. It's just trying to make them have a better life. Putting those people in prison isn't going to help them, and it's not going to help the Commonwealth. It's just going to be a drain on our tax base. So it's an effort to make change for the better, for the Commonwealth, for them and their families.
Sure. Do you see good results through these alternative sentencing guidelines or these alternative sentences that you've handed down?
Yeah.
What kind of results are you seeing?
We've had really good results. Not everybody's a success. You're going to get those who attempt to just circumvent their incarceration, and not really want to change. But some of the most satisfying things that happened to me during this point in my career is people will come up to me and say, "Judge, you changed my life." It almost makes me want to cry when people do that. And I've had a lot of that lately since I've been running for office. People have been putting things on Facebook posts saying, this is a good guy. He changed my life. I owe everything I have right now to him, giving me that second chance. And, it's very, very rewarding.
Very good. If you're just joining us, you're watching a special interview by the Commonwealth Policy Center. With us is Judge Bob Conley, Circuit Court Judge from Northeast Kentucky, the 20th Circuit. And Judge Conley, could you tell us what voters should be looking for in a good judge? Now, you're running for the state Supreme Court. What are some traits that a good judge will have?
Well, I think a good appellate judge needs to have good experience, trial experience. I find it hard to believe that there's people that would never been a judge, want to immediately go to the most high court in the state without ever having been a trial judge and actually dealt with the daily grind of being a trial judge on the trial level. Because these are the people that are going to be looking at what you did and how you performed in the courtroom without ever been there themselves. I think that's important, that you have known what these judges have done, have gone through, and it's hard to imagine how it is without ever having been there.
Sure. Judge Conley, tell us, how important is temperament to be a judge? And when I say that, how important is it to keep your cool, to have a calm demeanor when you have various cases and various personalities come before you? How important is temperament?
Well, it's important and it's tough. I'll be the first to tell you, it's tough. I have a little note, a poster that I put on the front of my bench that only I can see, that says, "Be patient and kind." Because, like on show calls days, when people are coming in there and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, they're not paying child support, they're not paying restitution, and you give them, chance after chance and after chance, and they just don't seem to get it. It's tough to keep your cool. I'll be the first to tell you. Now, I've raised my voice before. I've sent people to jail for contempt of court, and it's hard to do, but it's important to do, because even though we're human, judges are human, and they have human frustrations. you're still, you know, an elected official that people, you know, look up to and should respect and not fear, right? So it's very important. Our canons require us to be respectful and kind to your electorate.
Sure. You had mentioned your Christian faith. You had mentioned that you're conservative. How important is worldview to a judge? The grid in which they view the world, and there are many different worldviews in this country, and essentially that's how you view the world. How important is worldview to a judge?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by worldview. It's right now. I'm a two-county view. You know, I'm just trying to take care of my two counties, and if I get elected, I'll be looking at a state view. But you know, everything is kind of filtered through the federal view.
Let me try to unpack that if I could a little bit. When I talk about worldview, I'm talking about some basic presuppositions about the world. Is there a creator? Are we made in the image of God? And that's the Christian worldview, for example, would say there's a creator who makes us in his image, which he endows us with rights. There's a certain responsibility we have. There's certain moral boundaries. That's the Christian worldview. You have an animistic worldview where there are spirits in everything, and the rocks and the trees, and you know, God is in all of us, that kind of thing. So there are different worldviews, and I know it's something we don't talk about frequently, but we all have a worldview, whether or not we acknowledge it. And you know, this is something I think that regardless of whether you're running for judge or another elected office, if you get to a place of authority, it would seem to me good for the voters to know what is their worldview, what are those basic presuppositions that they have, you know, in contrast to, you know, so another worldview might be a humanistic perspective where man is the measure of all things. There really isn't a creator, or if he is, he's a kind of a deistic conception of a creator where he just lets us do our own thing. But so there are different worldviews, and it's I would say something that is helpful for voters to know what is the worldview of anybody who's on the ballot.
Well, my worldview, as you said, is as a Christian. You know, I think we're created in God's image, and but I also, even though I'm a Christian, I'm dedicated to our Constitution. You know, I've taken vows where I've sworn to uphold the Constitution. So, and our Constitution says that it's not necessarily Christian. It's a freedom of religion. So, you have to be tolerant of other people's religions for sure. But my personal is from the Christian standpoint. And, you know, that guides my daily lives and my daily beliefs. But I am sworn to uphold the Constitution, and I will do that vehemently.
Since you bring up the Constitution, Judge Conley, what is your view of the Constitution? And I want to contrast two views. In one camp, you have an originalist view where the founders meant what they said what they meant. It has a fixed meaning that applies to all generations, all the way up to our present time. That's one view. And then you have another view that would see the Constitution as a living, breathing document that needs to be interpreted by each generation. What is your view of the Constitution?
I am a originalist. I think the founding fathers said what they meant and meant what they said. I don't believe that you can start interpreting the Constitution. I just believe that's a slippery slope, that once you start down that, who's to say You know, does that mean that each generation will have a different interpretation? And you can get so far away from what our founding fathers meant that you're no longer operating under the same principles. So yeah, I think that you ought to stick to the Constitution as written, as the founding fathers intended.
Okay, very good. Could you give me an example of a living Supreme Court justice whose jurisprudence that you most agree with, either living or even a recent Supreme Court justice that the average person may know? Who would you align your jurisprudence with who's on the U.S. Supreme Court?
You know, I've had this question before by other people, and I'm not comfortable with it because if you align yourself with some person that I don't agree with all of the justices all the time, right? So I kind of try to avoid that question. I'm a conservative thinker. So if you want to look at the conservative thinkers on the Supreme Court, I'm probably more in line with them. But there's times that I don't align myself with them. They have different views than I do on certain cases. So I kind of avoid that question because I don't want them to automatically think, well, he's just like, you know, Justice so-and-so and unlike this justice. But actually, there's certain times that I agree with the different justices. So
I understand. Of course, there is a spectrum there. I think of probably the most liberal on the U.S. Supreme Court right now is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And you think about the Anthony Scalia, who passed away a few years ago, probably one of the most conservative justices we had. So you do have the two extremes. I realize there's a moderate middle. You have some in the middle.
Yeah.
So you do have an expanse there.
I'll put it this way. I don't see myself agreeing with Miss Ginsburg very much.
Okay. The U.S. Supreme Court has been viewed, even though we're talking about the state Supreme Court, which is what you're running for. Let's look at the U.S. Supreme Court. Many people have viewed them as activist, as taking on the role of the legislature. We've seen some of the most significant policy changes in the country come about through the U.S. Supreme Court. I think about Roe v. Wade in 1973, which legalized abortion on demand. I think about the Obergefell decision back in 2015 that essentially redefined marriage laws in this nation. Is that the proper role of the court, to be kind of a super legislature to enact major policy decisions?
Absolutely not. That's one thing that I'm totally against is judges or justices legislating from the bench. Yeah, we're not legislators. You elect legislators to make law and to make changes in the law. You don't elect judges to legislate, and I will not do that.
It takes some level of restraint to do that when you're in a position of significant power and influence, to have that kind of restraint. So tell us, getting back to the U.S. Supreme Court, what are some examples of good jurisprudence? Are there any legal cases that come to mind that are, and I'm going to ask you an example of a good jurisprudence, and then also an example of some bad jurisprudence? I don't know if that's something that you feel comfortable answering, but there are some cases that jump out as being, there are some good cases, and then there are some cases that maybe not so good.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable answering that. I'm afraid I might get in trouble with, you know, my ethics people that said I've gone too far. So
Don't want to get you in trouble, Judge Conley.
yeah,
That's
I want to get in trouble. Believe me. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go to a Gallup survey back in September of 2019. Gallup did a survey of public opinion towards Americans' opinion towards the three branches of government. And they found that the opinion towards the legislative branch was very low. The opinion towards the executive branch was a little better, about 40% range, somewhere in there. The America's opinion, or their trust, really more specifically, towards the judicial branch was 69%. 69% of Americans had a favorable view. Really, they trusted the judicial branch more than the other branches of government. Why do you think that is? Why is there more trust in the judiciary, the federal judiciary in particular?
Well, I can tell you why it's probably as low as 60-some% is because of all the political maneuvering that's done to get a federal Supreme Court justice, right? I mean, I don't know who would even want to be one of these days, because your whole life, everything you've ever done, everything you've ever said, everything you ever put on social media is somebody's going to look at it, and it's so political, you know. It's such a part of our polarization these days, I think. And when you do that to someone and you put all that out there 24/7 in the news media, you're going to have a certain segment of your society is going to just be turned off by it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's not higher. Why is it better than the legislative? The same reason, right? It's just, you know, you've got the polarization, Democrat, Republican, you know, it's just, I don't know, people want to slap labels on people instead of actually looking at them. I have that trouble in my campaign, you know. It's a nonpartisan race, which means I have to have Democrats, Republicans, independents, people that don't even know what they are, vote for me, right? But, you know, you try to tell people that, and they'll say, well, I don't want to hear that. I want to know if you're Republican or Democrat. So they can just slap a label on you and not do any research as to who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in.
So, Judge Conley, what is the solution to bringing about civility into the public arena? Let me put a finer point on that. A lot of people don't run for office because of what you're mentioning. Candidates are put through the ringer, particularly Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court justice candidates are put through the ringer. That deters a lot of good people from engaging and putting their hat in the ring, so to speak. What is the solution to making it a safer public realm, easier, healthier, more likely that good people would want to run, whether it's a judicial position or a legislative position?
You know, I don't know. I wish I'd had that answer. I think with the social media, the capabilities that people have today, and the fact that there's no accountability for what anybody puts out there, I don't know, because, you know, people can say and make up all kinds of crazy stuff that's not true in the least bit. But if they stick it out there, somebody's going to read it and they're going to go, are you kidding? Well, I would never vote for that person. Yeah. And with no basis whatsoever. I had a case not too long ago that I went by the law. I ruled, you know, what the law said. The people didn't like it. And then, you know, all of a sudden out there is just all kinds of crazy stuff that they made stuff up that, and nobody even asked me, well, Judge, well, why did you rule that way? I would have gladly told them, but not one person, the media or anybody.
That's unfortunate. Judge Conley, we've got 1 minute till we close here. Tell the voters why you're the best candidate for the state Supreme Court 7th District.
I'm the best candidate because I have 25 years of judicial experience that I can take with me. I have Christian values that I, you know, use to guide my life, my daily beliefs. I believe that I can take that to Frankfurt and I can make a difference for the Eastern Kentucky people and the whole state if I was elected. But you know, if you're looking for somebody with those beliefs, found your guy.
All right, very good. Judge Bob Conley, Circuit Judge in Eastern Northeast Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. God bless you and best wishes to you in your election bid.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to need all the help I can get.
Thank you.
Thank you.